Although it stands to reason that a samurai should be mindful of the way of the samurai, it would seem that we are all negligent. Consequently, if someone were to ask what is the true meaning of the way of the samurai, the person who would be able to answer promptly is rare. This is because it has not been established in one's mind beforehand. Therefore, from this, one's unmindfulness of the way can be known. Negligence is an extreme thing. The way of the samurai is found in death. When it comes to either or, there is only the quick choice of death. It is not particularly difficult. Be determined and advance. To say that dying without reaching one's aim is to die a dog's death is the frivolous way of sophisticates. When pressed with a choice of life or death, it is not necessary to gain one's aim. Now, I know you all are asking, Paul, I clicked on a link to a podcast about Irish stick fighting. Why in the hell are you talking about samurais? When I interviewed Bernie months ago, it kind of popped in my head, but it didn't fully register until I also interviewed John. And in transparency, it didn't register when I interviewed John, but the moment of putting this podcast together, the editing and the redigesting of what was said, it has since registered that these guys that are doing the Irish stick fighting and trying to preserve the legacy and trying to reestablish it back into the purview of the Irish community, it is quite similar to that of the way of the samurai. And John's journey is quite the way of the samurai as well. You see a lot of people, they take the word death quite literally when they read the Hakakura. They take they take the concept of death as meaning not living any longer, not existing any longer, and or giving that to somebody else. And I need y'all to understand that the Hakakura says that a samurai puts himself to death before he puts himself to bed every night. And that does not mean that he kills himself. And the Hakakura also says a samurai, good, fortunate samurai, will experience many deaths in his lifetime. And I know I personally have experienced a great deal of deaths in my lifetime. And I'm not talking about loved ones that perish or pets that perish. Well, all that is very important. I am talking about something deeper. I'm talking about a death that exists internally. And if we look at John's story, who you all are about to meet, he went through a professional death, a couple of them. Keystone Martial Arts School. COVID made that close down. And for a lot of us martial artists, COVID was a little bit of a changer. And we all experienced some form of death through COVID, where what we knew died and is no longer here, no longer living, whether that be the school or whether that be your personal practice and how you had to change from being in person with your peers to online study. And John experienced that death because he was a corporate trainer for years. And he killed that part of him and witnessed the death and is now happier because of it. these stick fighters, they're doing something very interesting. And, this Doyle lineage is one that should be preserved. As of the release, as of this specific moment, my shillelagh has been mailed out and is on the way. It was picked up by FedEx this morning, and it's on the way. And then I get to link up with Bernie and start studying this art. And I am looking forward to it. There's no housekeeping aside from me telling you all that I love you and I appreciate you. That the next couple of episodes that are coming out are going to have a little bit of there's some technical issues. There are episodes that I've kind of sat on for a little bit because I wasn't quite sure how to do them. And I'm just going to chop them up, put a little bit of interjection in, and let them ride. I'm excited for some things that are coming out. I was interviewed by Whistlekick, and I will be on a podcast coming up very soon. I'm excited about that. And I'm also pretty excited about Whistlekick's big event that's coming up in November. I'm going to share the event details. I'm trying to work out making it. And 4 days of martial arts sounds like a no-brainer. So it's awesome stuff. Looking forward to all of it. If you are a martial artist and would like to be a part of this podcast, please reach out to me. If you have questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, or ideas about what I'm doing, please reach out to me. I'm very receptive to that. If you know somebody that's a martial artist that would be good for this podcast, reach out. If you'd like to call me an asshole or a prick or any other name, you can do that. All of that at keepkickingpod@gmail.com. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with John. Even though it is about Irish stick fighting, I promise you it is not as redundant as one would think. His journey is very much different. I hope you see the nuance that exists in all of these conversations. Yeah, I'm talking about to martial arts artists, but we all come from different walks in life. We all got into it for different reasons. We all continue on for different reasons. And we all, because of our perspectives, see different things within each art. I could talk to 100 people that study Bushido, and they're not going to say the same things. That's what's wonderful about this podcast. So, without further ado, keep kicking. Enjoy.
Keep kicking, never quitting. Focus sharp like a blade that's hitting. From white belt dreams to the master flow, Paul Coffey's got the mic, now the stories grow. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Old school, new school, all styles blend. From the mat to the mic, where the arts ascend. Philosophy deep, but the vibe stays tight. Martial minds meeting in the podcast light. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. All Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking, keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Keep Kicking Martial Arts Podcast, where I have martial conversations with my martial arts friends. Today, I'm joined by John. John, want to tell people about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is John Borter. I've got about 35 years of experience in the martial arts, different systems, some notable black belt, taekwondo, hapkido, combat hapkido, small circle jiu-jitsu with a mix of FMA was really my forte. For the last 5 years or so, I focused strictly on Irish stick fighting, Doyle Irish stick fighting, namely. And that seems to be my forte. That seems to be my focus these days. So I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Well, Bernard said it's the best martial arts in the world.
It ranks. I'll tell you, depending on what you want to use it for. Let's put it that way. It really
Right.
So,
Right.
I actually, and Bernard, so people know, is my instructor out of Ireland.
Awesome.
So I'm familiar with him, very, very much. But Barney is, and I know you've interviewed him, fantastic guy.
Right.
It's funny, he's a couple years younger than me, but I always tell people he was like my favorite uncle, kind of thing. Great guy, great stick fighter, great instructor. So I'm glad you had an opportunity to talk with him. So
I do the same. So what got you started in martial arts?
in martial arts, well, I've always wanted to do it. Right? I was one of those typical kids that fell in love with, Bruce Lee and that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the trajectory that my life took me in was working in retail after I got out of school. And just never had the time. You're working ungodly amount of hours, weekends, nights, that kind of stuff. And at one point, there was a change where I actually found a retail position. I used to manage jewelry stores, of all things. So I have 2 diamond degrees and 1 gemology degree, and I got to work for a small, really upscale jeweler in the area, and he was like a 9-to-5er. So as soon as I saw that, I had friends that were training in Taekwondo actually, and I'm like, this is my chance. I finally get to do this. So I was the fanboy of martial arts for many, many years, even as a little kid with the Kung Fu theater and that kind of stuff. But when I actually got the chance, and I started late, I didn't start training until I was in my late 20s, actually. I signed up for classes. Friends of ours went to a great Taekwondo school in the area, and just from there, we took it off. And he also did kind of a side class on Hapkido. Starting at 28, not being a natural athlete at all, Taekwondo probably wasn't my best choice, considering the stretching and that kind of stuff. So I started gravitating towards the joint locks of Hapkido, and I love that stuff. That just turned me on a lot. It was great. So from there, I expanded out small circle jiu-jitsu through the years. I trained under Wally at seminars and ranked under his son Leon as a black belt in small circle. And I've always dabbled, and no disrespect intended, with Filipino martial arts. I just never had the ability or the commitment to really dig in and start a new art over again. So I would steal concepts from them. I have a lot of friends that do that. So we train together, and I'm like, hey, I can do that for my joint locking and that kind of stuff. I unfortunately consider myself a dabbler. So I had a gentleman come say to me, I used to co-host, I co-founded a very large martial arts instructional event up here in upstate New York, the Saratoga Martial Arts Festival. And my friend Perlman, he was really it's his brainchild. I did just some of the legwork behind the scenes, but we started in 2001 and we ended it in 2015, and we handed it off to a gentleman named Mark Cardona out of Rochester. He does a great job with it. And there would be hundreds of people that show up for the weekend, and we'd have 20, 25 instructors. Great event. We still get to go because we were the founders. We get to teach, and sometimes we let other people teach as a rotation kind of bit. Last year when I was there, I had an incredible martial artist, Tony DeSaro. We were talking, hey, John, how you doing? Hey, Tony, how you been, man? I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah. He goes, I was just talking about you. I go, what do you mean? He says, somebody mentioned your name, And I said, yeah, John Borter's a great guy. I love what he does, but he's the most dysfunctional martial artist I've ever met. and, I started laughing. I go, how do you mean? He goes, well, he started on Taekwondo, then he moved to Hapkido, then you were focusing on small circle, then you get into the Sami group with the knife and the Panantukan and that kind of stuff. But now you have this Irish stick fighting. I go, yeah. He goes, this is your thing. I watch you move with this, and this is you. This is what you should be doing. I go, well, that's good, because that's what I am doing, kind of thing. But yeah, I fell in love with this about 5 years ago. And about 3 years ago, I decided to teach, I should say, full time. So,
How did you get onto Irish stick fighting?
that's true. That was the question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I bought
Well,
a
no, the
shillelagh.
question was how you got into martial arts.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. No, you
I
didn't
bought a
miss it.
shillelagh online. I don't know. I've always been into. I always admired like canes, walking sticks, that kind of stuff. I just thought they were neat, right? And I bought a shillelagh. It's a shillelagh by a gentleman by the name of Declan Casey, who is probably, if not the best, but definitely one of the best shillelagh makers in the world out of Ireland. And I just bought it as a memento, something to have. And I posted it online. And I said, look, I got this shillelagh. This is cool. And a gentleman who was also teaching my women's self-defense program over in the UK, James Stewart, he goes, that's a great stick. Now you need to learn how to use it. I'm like, use it? It's a stick. It's cane. He goes, oh no. Reach out to Bernie Letty. So I did, and immediately started training. And at that point, my fiance Trish, I was about 2 weeks in. I'm like, you got to try this. And she's, of course, like, more martial arts, because she helped us with our women's self-defense class. She was a student of mine in our other stuff. And but she took to it like a fish to water as well. So we fell in love with it. We just fell in love with it. We just kind of tripped over it. I never went out looking for it. I just never would have thought about it. I didn't even know it existed, as most people don't, which I'm sure you had that conversation with Bernie, and we'll touch on that here. I just fell in love with it. It's a great system, especially Doyle. I did look into it a little bit. There are a couple of other systems out there that are very commendable and very respectable. The thing I like about Doyle is it's extremely close range. You don't think about having a close range system with a long range weapon. You know what I mean? A 3.5 foot stick, kind of thing. And I just loved closing in. That's how I did my empty hand stuff all the time. And it's just great. And the deeper I get into it, the more I pick it up. The more that comes out.
Okay, so this gives me a couple of questions. First of all, a preface. I'm about to start learning with Bernie. I
Excellent.
have ordered a shillelagh that's going to be custom made for me because I am 6'5".
So you
So
probably get something around 40, 42 inches.
yeah. My measurement was, I think, 41. I think actually. Um, so I'm getting one custom made, and
Nice.
from the same gentleman. He's going to make
Okay.
me a shillelagh.
Good choice.
Um, and then I'm going to start working with Bernie. Uh, my background, I've been doing martial arts for 32 years and teaching for 27 of those 32. And it is interesting because in what we talked about with Bernie, we never talked about that it's specifically close range, and that is very interesting to me. Shaolin Kempo, where I started, and any stick you put in my hand, we create as much distance as possible. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. How is it close range? Without, you don't have to give like a seminar, but just some basic.
Well, a little history on that, just to clear that up too.
Yeah.
So every Irish stick system, as far as I understand, started out as one-handed. They grab a stick and they just start swinging, right? And we'll get into the history if you want to. I'm sure you talked about it with Bernie, but sometime, and I don't really know the specific date, sometime in the early 1800s, there was a Doyle ancestor, a Doyle person who was a pugilist.
Okay.
And he realized pretty quickly if he used his boxing-related skills, his pugilism-related skills, because there is a difference, with a stick, with two hands, it opened up a lot more opportunity for what you could do with that stick. Because I can use both ends of the stick, I can close the distance. I did some sparring at a seminar that I did in Virginia Beach this weekend. And they're like, we want you to spar. And I'm like, you guys have never seen me spar before, have you? They're like, no. I go, let's go. And they put the helmets on and stuff. And it's about closing the distance and not creating as much distance. Because if you go against somebody with the same size stick or a longer stick,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at their range. See what I mean? If
Mm.
I get
Mm-hmm.
inside that range and negate the power and shut down some of their possibilities, it puts me in a much better position. So using a stick as a shillelagh is a two-handed system, right? I'm not saying that
Mm-hmm.
other shillelagh systems don't occasionally go to two hands, right? There are some really
Mm-hmm.
good systems out there. Sometimes I start a little bit of a rabble on our group when I make a comment that Doyle is primarily two hand, where most of the other systems are one hand, and they'll come back. We have two hand sticks. I get it. I get you doing a stick with two hand every once in a while, but that's our focus is to get on the
Mm-hmm.
inside. So we're trying to close the distance to be able to take away their opportunity to utilize that distance and the length of the stick on their end, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Does the footwork come from boxing, more or less?
It really comes, based on my understanding, comes from two different places: boxing and fencing.
Okay.
There's some you'll see some overlaps of historical European martial arts, fencing, sword work, that stuff. Where that really came from was back in the day. I don't know if you're familiar with Irish history, but they've had a little spat with the British for about 1,000 years, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
they would farm out Irish citizens to fight in wars for other countries. Now they couldn't be in their own army and they couldn't serve in the British army, but they'd go to France and they'd go to Africa and they do that and they would be soldiers. Well, they would be taught on how to use swords, right? And
Okay.
when they came back home, there was already a law passed by the British that Irish people couldn't own weapons. That's why they
Mm.
that's why they use a stick, right? And they would start these hedge schools, right? Basically hiding behind a hedge so nobody can see it in someone's backyard or someone's pasture or something. And they would take some of their sword fighting techniques and apply it to a stick, right, to be able to use it that way. What the
Wonderful.
Royals guys did is they kind of took it a little different direction. They said, well, I can also use boxing. So a lot of the footwork you'll see it in boxing related moves, as far as weight distribution and torque and that kind of stuff, and also fencing. Also fencing.
Hmm.
More footwork than it is a lot of those long term jabs. I don't want to imply that we're fencing with a stick because we're not. That's one of the
Hmm.
first things I said at my summit this weekend. I said, look, keep something in mind. This is not a sparring system. This is not a fencing system. The goal is to get inside and take the guy out. And if
Hmm.
I can negate their distance using that longer
Hmm.
stick, it puts me in a
Hmm.
much better position. So
I love that. How has that helped translate for your other arts? How is that helping you like close distance just empty handed and such?
well, it's actually worked the other way because most of my empty arts, once I started really digging into FMA, small circle, that kind of stuff, it's always about closing the distance.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
dabble in Wing Chun, so it's almost like a Wing Chun with a stick. Sometimes I see jokingly say that. So it kind of validated what I had previously done, and it actually made it
Mm.
easier for me because it's intimidating to close in on somebody with a stick. Let's put it that way.
Oh,
There's
for
things
sure.
in their head,
For
right?
sure.
Any kind of that thing. One of the things in our
Hmm.
women's self-defense program is like, get in there. Don't back
Hmm.
up. Don't run away because they can always go
Hmm.
faster coming forward than you can going backwards, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's time to do this. You flip that switch and you get in there and
Hmm.
you're now the aggressor. So it kind of validated everything I did
Hmm.
prior from a closing
Hmm.
distance. I'm not saying people that fight from outside, like maybe some great Taekwondo guys that do longer kicks and spin back. That's remarkable stuff.
Right.
This is
Absolutely.
different. So anything I'm saying here, it's just my understanding of things as far as
Oh, for
history
sure.
stuff.
For
Because
sure.
in Irish, you have a story. There's always three sides to every story, right? So I'm just telling what I've learned from Bernie and my research and stuff.
Hmm.
So I would never talk down about any other system style, whether it's Irish stick or not. To me, some of the other systems, it's like comparing basketball and baseball,
Hmm.
right? They're
Yeah.
both
Well,
great sports. They're both great. They're just different. So
in my in my walk within martial art, it has come to my understanding that the best martial art is the one that we resonate with the most. And
yes,
so like the best martial arts in the world for you, for Bernie, Irish stick fighting. For
yeah,
for for somebody like me, Kempo is my bread and butter. I love it. And then when I study something like Wing Chun or Tai Chi or Jiu Jitsu, I'm pulling from those styles the things that fit with my
Yeah,
Kempo.
yeah.
And that's what we do as martial artists that are like, if you're a lifetime martial artist, conceptually our goal is what techniques do we need to build ourselves better, and then the rest.
I totally get where you're coming from with that. I take a similar, slightly different approach to that. I'm really, the way I teach, and we all have a different way of
Mhm.
teaching, it's principle based, like
Mhm.
with Kempo in other ways. Principles are universal. Principles go
Yes.
throughout every system. There aren't certain
Mhm.
principles for this or for, when you talk about weight distribution and vertical resistance and speed, you can do that in every martial art. I don't care if you're a
Mhm.
BJJ guy or a Taekwondo guy. There are principles
Mhm.
that cross over. So adopting the principles of the different systems, whatever they may
Mhm.
be, to me is a huge, huge advantage. So, oh, let
Right.
me clarify one thing real quick. I just realized
Y-
something.
Okay.
When we talk about the two-handed system, I just want to be clear. We're not
Yeah.
talking about this.
Right.
Okay, when we talk about
Right.
two-handed system, it's this. It's two-handed in the
Mhm.
center of the stick. Right. A lot of reasons for that. One, um, when you punch from the center of the stick, it's faster than with the extra excess weight on the end of the stick.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing,
Mhm.
but this, boom. I was teaching a seminar for a bunch of MMA guys, and one of the guys go, "Hey John, hey, how come you hold it like this?" I go, "I don't know. Why don't you throw an angle one for me?" He goes, "Okay," and he brings
Mhm.
it back, and I go, "Pop!" and I laid it right on his cheek. And I go, "Any questions?" He's like, "Nope." So it's a very efficient way to strike. Not saying this
Mhm.
other stuff is not, right?
Right. Right.
Two, if you and I are in an altercation, I'm like this. You can,
Mhm.
with your martial arts training specifically, probably do
Mhm.
a pretty good judging distance. How
Yes.
far
Yes.
can you
Mhm.
need to move to get out of striking range?
Mhm.
How do you gauge distance here?
Mhm.
You don't know
Right.
where
Right.
it's coming from, what direction it's coming from, and our two-handed stuff is really getting in. So all of this kind of thing, this is my
Mhm.
perspective, that's an outside. And then we have techniques to bridge to the inside. So I might be doing long range strikes, but ultimately it's to
Mhm.
get me closer, right? Not just plow through, that kind of a thing. So yeah, no, it's beautiful, beautiful art. It really is. So
Okay, so in my circle of martial artists, a conversation has arisen in that we're martial artists.
mhm.
We don't mind hurting people, for lack of a better word.
Yep,
And so then the conversation is, how do we teach people who fundamentally do not want to hurt somebody
yeah,
to
absolutely.
defend? Because there are people that, and so I brought this up to some of my other friends, just basically saying, look, I could teach somebody that just wants to learn self defense how to throw the perfect punch. And they
Yep,
will throw that perfect punch in class 1,000 times. But if they get attacked, they're not going to use that punch because they don't want to hurt somebody.
yep.
So, what's
This
your perspective on that?
this is something that's come up throughout our women's self defense program.
Okay.
We haven't done it in a while. Post COVID, I had shut down my club, and I
Hmm.
focused strictly on this, and I do a lot of Zoom training and seminars and live groups as well.
Hmm.
Um, but we're looking at relaunching that again because it was a wonderful, wonderful program.
Hmm.
And we run into that a lot. People that don't want to hurt someone else. So they'll get up there and they'll hit the bobs, they'll hit the pads, all kinds of stuff. At the end, we bring
Hmm.
in the guys in the blower suits, you know what I mean, and then they take them
Right.
on. But one of the things that I do talk about is that two things. You want to flip that switch, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, how do you flip that switch? How do you get
Hmm.
someone that's inherently passive to do that? So I usually tell a
Hmm.
story at the end of this program. I said, listen, and just to kind of bring things into context, there was a young lady. She was down in the South, and she was at home
Hmm.
with her 6-month-old baby, and um, her husband had passed away around Christmas time, right? Or New Year's.
Hmm.
This was like a New Year's Eve kind of a thing. And all of a
Hmm.
sudden, these two guys come to the door and they're pounding on the door. It's very obvious they're going to get in there, and based on their exchange, they wanted to find any money or any valuables and basically kill her, basically kind of thing. So she grabs the baby, she runs upstairs, she locks herself in the bedroom. She calls 911. And she says, there's two guys trying to get in the house. They said they're going to kill me. Help, help, help. I have a gun. because apparently in the South, everybody keeps a gun under their bed, right? Can I kill them, right? And the 911 operator appropriately responded and said, I can't give you permission to kill anyone, but do what you need to do to protect yourself. Right then and there, like right out of a movie, apparently, one guy burst through the door with a knife that he got in the kitchen, and she took that double barrel and she just went bam right in the chest. Right. She went downstairs. The other guy heard the commotion, heard the shot, left. They arrested him, a mile down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting self-defense scenario. But what got me was the post-interview. Right. She said, I just can't hurt people. I can't imagine hurting people. I would never even think about it. But I had to protect my 6-month-old baby. What I do is that when we have those conversations, I talk about there's got to be a trigger, right? Whether it's your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife, your dog, your cat, whatever. Everybody has something worth fighting for, because sometimes themselves is not enough. But what happens if something happens to you and you never see your child again, or they don't get to see you ever again? So you got to think a little broader. This is what I tell people tonight. I want you to go home, and when you're laying in bed thinking about this awesome women's self-defense program, I need you to think about why would you be willing to do that? It's not about necessarily just you. You have children, you have loved ones, you have parents, you have spouses that want you to come home. So you need to really think about that. Part of our program is really getting them riled up, really, really.
Yeah.
But it's been a great program for us, and we've taught about I'd say 5,000 to 6,000 women in the last 10 years or so, and we've heard some remarkable stories from people about why they took this or what's happened in their past that they're taking it, or maybe they actually did something that we did in the class that helped get them out of a scrape. So, but so I always tell people you got to think beyond. Maybe you could never hurt someone, but if it's a home invasion, they're moving into your child's room next.
Right.
You got to think beyond that, whatever the reason is. And that story's always resonated with me. So,
no, that's interesting perspective for sure, and that might be the key. I do know that a lot of the people that I teach have expressed that, like, the switch is something that they have a problem with, because, like, as a martial artist, me and you are having discord, we're having a great conversation, but then if we were to spar, John's no longer in front of me and you're just a body.
Yeah.
And so, like, the switch, I kind of dehumanize somebody, and a lot of the individuals that need to learn self-defense, they've been raped and they've been assaulted, they've been dehumanized.
Yeah.
So because they know what it feels like, it's harder for them to get that switch to flip. I do think that giving them an extra reason might be beneficial. That might help for sure. Can you tell me what has kept you in martial arts for this?
Some people might not agree with this standpoint, and I never drifted from system to system purposely. I mean, I was trying to find my thing, but I always kind of adopted stuff. So there's a bit of a variety in my background, and I think that's kind of helped keep me interested. Not that I'm bored. No, that's what I meant. But I always kind of, hey, that looks kind of cool. Let me look at that. And I was always kind of switching up and always adopting certain concepts and principles and techniques to kind of bring it all together. I mean, the system I was teaching was just an amalgamation of a lot of stuff. And ultimately it came down to, entry, trapping, and locking, just pop up, getting in and take it. Because I do a lot of law enforcement training. And so it's all about takedown and control. I'm not big on taking stuff out. Sometimes you might have to. Don't get me wrong. That's a whole different thing. And obviously, anything next week could do that. But when I was working as a bouncer in security, and when I helped some of the local law enforcement guys with some DT training, there's certain things you just can't do. Now, if I needed to, when my life was at stake, or the life of my fiance or my daughter, that's going to change things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was always about finding, just tripping onto something else. That's kind of cool. Let's try this kind of thing. That's one of the things that kind of kept me moving forward, because I always had something fresh. I'm not the other day. I trained for a couple years in this, then a couple years in this, a couple years, and then it would all start to kind of blend and meld, and it
Hmm.
worked out really, really well for me. And this, Irish stick fighting, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. You know,
So when you teach Irish stick fighting, do the other styles bleed through at all, or are you teaching the
some,
style of Irish stick?
some references to other styles will feed into like, you know how in Tai Chi they do this, or you know how in what
Okay.
recently come up as I have a couple, a husband and wife in Australia. She's a Wing
Hmm.
Chun practitioner. He's like a DT instructor over there for law enforcement. Wonderful under people, Dean and Michelle. Hi, Dean and Michelle. Just great. And she said to me just last week, she goes, you know, when we had that conversation about, I do a little drill I call the Elvis, and it's about rotating the hips and rotating the feet a certain way so you maintain your balance and structure. And she goes,
Okay.
when you explained that to me, everything fell into place. Everything fell into place because as a Wing Chun practitioner, she back weights a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Doyle is a front weight system, you know, because we want to have that kind of pressure against that foot. So when I lift it, you move. You know, you're already
Hmm.
going drag racer, you know, with the tires going, just
Okay.
take the
Yeah,
break.
yeah.
And it made perfect sense now. Oh my God, it's great, kind of a thing. So yeah, there's a lot of things that people say, oh, we do that footwork or that position in Tai Chi, or oh, we do that footwork or that position in karate, or I've seen that in JKD, or I've seen that. That validates what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do in Doyle. You know, if there's
Hmm.
a reference point that they can use to refer back to be familiarity, or we can even validate it by saying, you know, they do this in other styles sometimes, of course, with a different historical aspect and everything on that. But so
Sure.
yeah, it's not that some of the teaching methodologies I do bleed over,
Yeah,
but
yeah, but
not. I wouldn't say I use what I've done in the like closing the distance. Perfect
hmm.
example, right? Certain types of
Hmm.
foot, um, body rotation or body positioning, I might do slightly different sometimes. But no, it's pretty consistent. Doyle's the full package when you dig into it. I learned more and more. I can honestly say that in my previous martial arts, I probably didn't focus as much as I should have on say footwork. Right?
Hmm.
I moved,
Hmm.
I went off at angles and that kind of stuff. But man, some of the weight distribution and the principles involved and the way the footwork works in Doyle, it just always impresses me. It always
Okay.
impresses me. And I like to look at things from a very scientific standpoint, you
Okay.
know, body posture, weight distribution, physics, geometry. You know, we just
Hmm.
had a lesson on centrifugal force using the stick so you get more power out of it rather than fighting with your arms, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that kind of teaching methodology seems to work really, really well. So
What do you think is the one thing that every student neglects?
probably footwork. Yeah, and I was the guilty party. I was the guilty party. I've improved.
We've come full circle because that was the very first answer on my very first
Yeah,
episode
yeah,
with somebody that I've known longer than anybody else in martial arts. So,
yeah. And I will be the first to admit I neglected it. Again, I
mhm,
stepped, I moved, I turned, but I didn't
mhm,
understand necessarily the intimate things like weight distribution and hip
mhm,
motion, that kind of stuff. And Doyle has brought all that out for me.
mhm.
It's improved every martial art I'll ever teach. Because sometimes I'll do a seminar in tomahawk or knife or trapping or whatever the case may be, and everything is kind of like you said, full circle. So now
Yeah,
the
yeah.
things that previously are better because I do Doyle. That's really helped me just change my whole focus, my whole direction. So
That's the way it should be, though. Like especially if we bounce around. If we bounce around, you touched on the fact that you're bouncing around because, oh, something's interesting and has caught your eye, and you have to understand the new interesting thing. But also, we're bouncing around because what we've learned, we still haven't filled in this gap that we feel is missing. So we're,
great point. Great
because
point.
I was very similar in that capacity, starting in Shaolin Kempo and always coming back to Shaolin Kempo, but learning jujitsu and learning aikido and like learning these things to come fill the gaps in that we're missing. Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Um,
Something with me, I didn't even realize I had gaps. I started doing this. I'm like, man, what have I been doing for the last 35 years? What's going on? No wonder I'm emotional. But yeah, this has brought everything together for me. So
well, you were laying a foundation so you could build a house of Doyle on the foundation. That's what you're doing.
no, it's a good way to look at it. a good way to look
Yeah,
at it.
it just took a long time to make the proper foundation to hold the structure.
So,
What do you have a martial art philosophy that is helping you, that is guiding you, pushing you through as far as teaching, as far as continuing to study, any of that goes?
yeah, I mean, I can say it basically in one phrase. All right.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's more than one right answer.
Mm,
Right. Just because I don't do BJJ doesn't mean BJJ is not a great martial art. Just because I
absolutely.
don't do Tai Chi doesn't mean that that little 95-year-old Chinese gentleman couldn't take me apart. But when
Right.
you look at the structure and the body position, and sometimes I'll get on social media and they'll have somebody doing Tai Chi and people will make their cracks. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
slow motion. Oh look, I could take him out in a minute. Blah blah blah. I'm looking at this guys. Watch him move. This guy will take you apart.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not about a bunch of 80-year-old housewives or grandmothers just exercising in the park. A
Hmm.
real Tai Chi practitioner who understands the art will destroy you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Now, of course, there's things out there you go, what, yeah, there's more than one right answer, but there's a couple that are completely wrong when you think about it. But I say it's not the right answers. There's more than one right answer to this. Just because I
Right.
do it that way, you do it that way, and he does that, doesn't mean they're wrong. It means they're
Right.
different.
Hmm.
So,
The
but
the
that
wrong answer, the wrong answer is the one that you lose. The fight that you lose, that was the wrong answer.
and you know what? Even if somebody does it wrong or somebody, I'm still learning from that. I'm
Oh,
learning
yes.
not only what not to do, but I'm a big thing also in my teaching philosophy is why. Why do we step that way? Why do we change our weight distribution that way? Why are we turning our hips in that direction?
Hmm.
Not this way. The other thing is the why. Yeah, I'll teach the what and the how, but if you don't understand the why, you don't
Hmm.
understand what you're doing completely, and that can
Absolutely.
lead to issues. That can lead to issues. I'm a big teacher from why are we doing this? Not just
Hmm.
how or what. So
Are you familiar with Tommy Given by
no,
some chance? Okay, I interviewed him and he came out 2 or 3 weeks ago. He teaches to be curious. So if you're afraid of something, why are you afraid of it? If you don't understand it, well, what don't you understand? Why don't you understand it? I thought that was just that's a brilliant way to keep
it is.
people open-minded, even if they didn't want to be or they weren't coming to be open-minded.
It'll give them that deeper understanding of what we're here for. Right. And I was
Yeah.
talking high on the techniques or the body posture or the physics or the structures.
Hmm.
He's taking that to a whole different step. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. So
How has martial arts helped you outside of the martial art world? Helped with work or with being a father or a
yeah,
partner or
I was never the most patient person in the world. When I was a little bit of a hothead when I was younger, and I don't know if my fiance Trish would agree with this, but I'm a lot more patient with the martial arts. I have to understand it. Definitely gives me a lot of focus. Doing this full time now, I focus on this so much, and sometimes
Mhm.
you need a break. Sometimes you need a break. I mean, I'm training 50 to 60 hours a week between live study groups and Zoom sessions, so I've gotta keep it together. It's made me, I think, hopefully a little more humble. A
Mhm.
little more humble on that
Mhm.
because I realize there's people out there. No matter how good I am, there's always somebody better, and I'll never
Mhm.
get out there and say my system's better than yours or I can take you on. Yeah, I don't play that game. I don't play it. It's not in my nature to be that way. So
I think Bernie said that actually.
I'll kick your butt. So Bernie, I'll tell you one thing about Bernie. Bernie just moves like the wind and hits like a truck. Right,
Oh
his
yeah.
swing a stick. Oh my God. He made a comment to me. I was helping him with a seminar just outside of New York City, and we
Mhm.
do what we call lead strikes and reverse strikes. Now it's a right side lead system, so it's like a lead jab or a reverse
Mhm.
punch, right? Lead and reverse.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah,
talking
yeah.
to the group, and I had been training at that point probably 3.5 years or some I don't know, might could be 4 years or 5 years. I can't remember how long I've been training. But
Mhm.
he says to the group, he said, the reverse strike is actually stronger than the lead strike. Now I'm right-handed. My right hand's in the front, right? So I'm like, that can't be right, right? I look at him and I did my famous Scooby Doo interpretation. I was like, kind of thing. What? And he goes, hold your stick up. And man, he hit that lead strike with his strong arm, right? And
Hmm.
it resonated. You hear crack, right? And then, but he did it with his weaker arm. I say weaker with all due respect, with his
Yeah,
left
yeah.
arm. We have a body mechanic that involves with a lot of torque, and he just hit that stick and it went crack. So here I had been training for a few years now, never realizing that my weak arm strike is actually stronger than my first arm strike because of the body mechanics of the system. Plus, it gives you more distance. I could pick up another 12, 18 inches on that strike because of the torque and the turn. And I'm learning
Hmm.
something every day, you know.
So do we think that the weaker side, wow, in Kempo, my I'm right hand dominant, so my right side is my strength side and my left side is my flexible side.
Good way
So
to
we
look
don't
at it.
say it's the weak side, we say that it's the more flexible side because I mean typically that is the case, is that your dominant side has got more muscle on it, and so it's stronger from a physiological standpoint, and so your left side then becomes more flexible, where if I need to throw a higher kick, I can throw a higher kick off of that leg to get myself out of or closer into
Sure.
danger, as it were. So, do you think that it's got something to do with flexibility, or do you think it's because you can get that extra 12 to 18 inches in the torque, or?
There's a lot going on with that particular technique, right?
Okay.
That we do, it opens up the chest muscles, so you're adding a lot more strength because you're stretching it across the chest. You are getting
Hmm.
more torque because the movement that we do has about drawing this arm back, almost like a karate punch, but it's a little bit different.
Hmm.
So that gives you more torque, that gives you more distance. I never thought of it from a flexibility standpoint. I can tell you, I am just not. I'm not good with my left hand at anything. Through all my martial arts training, I just never got that. They
Okay.
say, well, do 5,000 punches with this hand and 10,000 punches with this hand, and I did all that.
Yes.
It didn't work for me. It didn't, So this is my weak hand. It's always gonna be a weak hand. But this knowing that I can hit stronger and harder using mechanics and physics rather than using
Hmm.
strength was shocking to me. And I had been training with Bernie for a few years at that point, and I was surprised. I was like, wow. And so now that's one of my focal points. When I break down how to do that particular strike, I'm like, this is what's going to happen for you. And it's like, wow, I never do that. Would never do that. So you may be right on the money. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not flexible anyway, no matter what I do. Um, but going back to why did I start taking Taekwondo? I should have just take meditation or something. But yeah, no, you might have something there. Because you're not as tense. The tension is a horrible thing in martial arts. You probably know that. It
For
slows you
sure.
down. So relaxation is key when it comes to doyle. There's not a lot of muscle. There's strength. There's not a lot of
Hmm.
muscle. And I've
Hmm.
always said that strength comes from relaxation, speed, and structure.
Hmm.
And I can hit you harder with an open-handed slap than I can with a hammer fist. And I've proven it many
Hmm.
times to my students. And
Hmm.
they're shocked at that. That's because I'm relaxed. I'm using
Hmm.
physics and body mechanics and geometry and torque and rather than and it's great. But I've found that when using a punch, for example, I
Hmm.
call that a one-dimensional strike. It usually hits the muscle sheath, and that's about it, right? It doesn't go too much deeper
Hmm.
than that. It hurts, and it's great. When I slap someone, it goes down into the nerves. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah.
slap, and I'll light that right up. So a lot of the stuff I've done with relaxation and that kind of stuff really helps with my doyle, and the doyle stuff I do helps me with everything else I've been doing. So it's a
Hmm.
beautiful symbiotic relationship. So
Hmm. Okay, we got off on a tangent. How has martial arts helped you in regular life outside of the dojo?
again, I think it makes me a little more patient, a little more
Yeah,
humble, a little more
yeah,
I don't know, a little more grounded, I think. A little more
yeah.
grounded.
Has it helped with work in any capacity?
It has in such a way. My former job, and this is something
Yeah.
that worked both ways. My former position, a little over 3 years ago, the company I worked for was sold to a Canadian investment firm. Massive
Hmm.
layoffs have been going on since then, and I was in the first or second, kind of level of that. And I was a corporate training director, so I was designing training programs for corporate employees. So one, that actually helped me design my curriculum for martial arts kind of thing. So it's a flip side there. I knew how to design a program and how to train and how to set things up at certain levels so people could comprehend it, right? But doing the martial arts, again, this is more of a symbiotic relationship. Corporate training helped me become a better teacher, and becoming a better teacher helped me become a better corporate trainer. So there was definitely a flip side that dramatically improved my career options there at that point.
Yeah, these conversations that I'm having are helping me grow as a teacher.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
just hearing the different perspectives and then absorbing that and reusing that as I'm teaching. And so the only reason that I redirected it, not because I wanted that other part of the puzzle, is because this podcast is for martial artists. And
Yeah,
martial artists are either people that have been doing martial arts for 30 years or people that haven't done martial arts yet. Yeah.
that's true. That's true.
You know?
One of the questions that came up from a corporate standpoint, which I think could be translated to a martial arts type perspective, right? Whatever verbiage you use, I know I'm not using the particular verbiage as an insult to anyone, but my first trainer's job, right? I nailed it on one question. We went through the interview, and the lady said, "Let me ask you a question. What's the difference between a teacher and a trainer?" And I didn't even hesitate. I said, accountability. Because what do you mean? I go, a teacher will partake, and they'll put out a curriculum there, and then people learn a move or learn a subject, and they move on and they go to the next grade. A trainer has to make sure that this works, and that they understand it, and they utilize it, and they can use this stuff. It's not about imparting information; it's about imparting knowledge. There's a huge difference,
For sure.
And so that's really why we get to the why. Why do we talk about not just the how we do it and then the way to do it, but why are we doing it, and why are we looking at these tiny little pieces? It's funny. I think it was Einstein that said the true sign of genius is someone that can take something complex and make it simple. Yes, I usually start that way, but then I'm not comparing myself to Einstein. But sometimes I'll say taking something simple and making it complex, because it's not just a punch. There's so much going on with that punch. But if they look at a specific version of it first, and they go, okay, now let's start adding little pieces. Let's start tweaking. So that's been a huge, kind of direction for me when it comes to teaching martial arts, or when it comes to teaching, Irish stick. It's been great. So,
when you said before you gave your answer of the difference between a teacher and an instructor, my brain said the difference is accountability which is almost the exact same answer, because the teacher just gives the material and then you're done. But that trainer, we have the accountability of making sure that the technique sticks, making sure that, and then also like a teacher is not somebody that's going to be a coach ringside or mat side or whatever have you, whereas a trainer would be that coach mat side and helping you in real time work through. So that's pretty interesting.
And again, I'm using it in the context of like a corporate environment.
But
teachers in the martial arts. Again, that's why I wanted to clarify, saying I wasn't using a verbiage that meant to rub it. But when you look at the condition of a lot of the modern school, modern educational system, I know someone who wasn't doing great in school, and they just continue to pass them right through. That's not, you don't do that in the martial arts. Not if you're doing it right. If you're doing it right and doing it with the best of intentions, you really want to make sure that these students are progressing. It's not about perfection; it's about progress. That's really what we're trying to get.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a responsibility you have as an instructor or a teacher. I think in the martial arts, teacher and instructor can almost be interchangeable.
For sure.
In a way. There might be different when it comes to saying instructor and coach, or teacher and coach, or something like that, but it all has to work together. There has to be that relationship there. But I was just giving a corporate America.
Yeah. No, but it's all the same. It is all the same.
You'll find that we all have a lot more in common than we do differences. Whether you're talking about teaching in a school, or teaching in a corporate America environment, or teaching martial arts, or your martial arts versus my martial arts versus someone else's martial arts. When I say versus, I don't mean competitively, but
Right.
If we could stop and realize we have more in common than we do different, maybe all this, my technique's better than yours, and my system's the best in the world. That's squabble. I mean, don't do that. Why do that? So
Music to my ears. That's what it is online, is that like, oh, that's bullshit because it's not my way and blah 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 blah. And the online martial arts community is horrible. What was one of the reasons I started this podcast.
I saw a video of a gentleman, looks like some type of either Tai Chi or something, a Chinese gentleman, and the guy came up to throw a sweep, and the guy would just negate his forward motion with a little turn of the hips and just take him down. He's not turning his hips and blah 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 blah. And my dog could take him down, and I could take him down, and that won't work against a UFC fighter, which kills me, right? I'm like, guys, he's using his hips for the whole thing.
Right.
You just don't get it, do you? You know what I mean?
Right.
But everybody wants to be relevant, put it out there. Where I'm like, guys,
Right.
this guy's phenomenal. You just
Right.
don't understand what he's doing. So
Right. Well, most of the time I'm like, am I watching the same video? Like,
yeah, exactly.
maybe I got a different video than you got.
Exactly.
What advice would you like to give to anybody who hasn't started martial arts, but they're thinking about it, they're looking around?
So about general martial arts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
My thing would be,
And Bernie's already said, try Irish stick fighting.
oh yeah, I figured that much, right? So that'll be the second thing I say. But I think the challenge we have these days, and this is why there's a lot of turnover in martial arts schools, in my opinion, right, is they go to the flavor of the month, right? A lot of people will say, oh, BJJ is great, I want to go do that, but they don't have the flexibility, they don't have the strength, maybe they're a little bit older, but that's the big thing. That's the thing today, so let's try that. Back in the 80s, it was the ninja craze, right?
Yeah.
Can you climb a brick wall? Can you do that kind of stuff? You know what I mean? And that is a legitimate art. I'm picking on it a little bit, but it is a legitimate art. I did Bujinkan for a short time, and it is brilliant. It is a really good art. But they look at that, Krav Maga, that's the best fighting system in the world. Look, don't buy the hype. It very well may be, right? But look around. Find something that suits your personality, your intent, your physical stature, kind of a thing. I don't care how big you think you are. If I'm a 5'1", 118-pound person, right? Maybe MMA is not for me.
Right.
But
for
especially
sure.
the younger crowd, just they get all tooled up into that, right? And then MMA, I'm an MMA fighter, and then the first time you meet in the ring, they hit the face and they're done, right? Not everyone, don't get me wrong, but you don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in the psych, right? Find something that works for you. You know what might work for you? Tai Chi might work for you. I know a great Tai Chi instructor that not only teaches Tai Chi, but teaches the combative aspects of Tai Chi. And it's remarkable. It's remarkable when you know what you're doing. And yeah, my big thing is don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in that psych that you see out there with the flashy uniforms, that kind of stuff. Find what works for you. Not saying that somebody who's completely inflexible and completely couldn't manifest and mature be a great Taekwondo fighter. Not saying that at all.
Right.
You gotta look beyond. You gotta look deeper into just the bells and whistles, kind of thing.
For sure. That's a great answer. Is there anything that you would like to say that you haven't had a chance to say yet?
I've said this a million times, but I don't know if it's resonated specifically to Bernie, right? I owe Bernie everything I'm doing right now. This is my full-time passion. This is what I love as far as martial arts is concerned. Bernie is an incredible instructor. You could not have picked a better instructor at all. He's just great. And I want to thank him for everything he's offered me. I'll tell you that much. It is a great art. That kind of goes back to my last thing. Find something that works for you. Right. I've done many martial arts. I've trained I've ranked in 5 or 6. I've at a high level. I've trained with an immense amount of people through my seminar experience and running that. Steve Perlman run that event up in Saratoga. I've got to train with, you name it. There's probably something I haven't at least touched on. Right. So I know why this is for me. I know this is for me. This is exactly what I want to do. Take the time. Don't rush into anything. You do have to be careful. We taught a women's self-defense class, and usually our classes, the initial class is 3 hours because it's very basic. It's very simple. We do 3 strikes. Basically palm, heel, elbow, and knees. But we really spend a lot of that time just building up that rage, to get them to do it. we taught it at a school, and about a month later, I saw them post something out there. They were doing a 90-minute women's self-defense class. And it was so obvious from one of the videos and stuff. They were taking some of the techniques we did and twice the time to even get people adequate. But then the last 15 minutes, they threw knife defenses in there. And I'm like, what? Okay.
You're 15 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah. And they cut ours down to like nothing. And then they were teaching knife defense to a bunch of untrained, middle-aged housewives.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? I lost it. I was like, are you serious? These people are going to get killed. Do you realize
knife defense is not a 15-minute conversation,
or for an untrained person? So
right.
Like I said, don't buy the hype. Don't buy the hype. Don't buy the psych. Find something that works for you, something you enjoy. If you're not having fun, you don't enjoy it, you're not going to keep with it. So
absolutely.
I think part of that. Go ahead.
Do you teach Irish stick as self-defense at all? Like, I know it's a self-defense style, but do you teach it in self-defense seminar capacity?
Yes, in a way, right? Because so I don't just carve it out and say, okay, now we're going to do self-defense with the shillelagh, right? It's all there, right? But there's ways you can kind of cross that bridge. We do our first block against a stick. Guess what? That also works against a haymaker, right? You do this technique here, right? Guess what? With a stick against a stick or against a block, I can also use that as against a choke defense. The overlap is there. So I think some of the dojo people, myself included, may kind of bring that out. Right now, I think the real focus is on protecting the historic legacy of the system. And that's a big thing. We're not just trying to expand a martial art. We're trying to respect the Doyle family legacy. And everybody who teaches this and everybody who swings a stick should understand that protecting that legacy and promoting that family, lineage, right, is a top priority for Doyle. It really, really is. Do we look at some variations once in a while? And yeah, absolutely. There's different things you can do, but right now it's all about the history in a lot of ways. Can we get back into sparring and competition at some point? Sure we can. I know Glenn was not a huge fan of competition with Irish stick or stick, because there's a lot of stick things. Because I did a little sparring this weekend with my students down in Virginia. I think I did pretty well. I think they'll think the same thing. But so everything I did worked, and I was like, this is great. The problem with sparring, according to Glenn's perspective, and I don't disagree, is that, because he's thinking from a fighting perspective, right? That you come at me full bore, you've got protective helmets and headgears or arms, and and I hit you in the head, you keep on coming. All right, well, guess what? Now you completely underestimate the effectiveness of that technique. I completely am disappointed with what I've been training in for 5-6 years that it didn't work. Right? That's not how a fight happens. So his kind of statement on that was it's unrealistic, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong. Though, can I gain some advantages through sparring? Yeah, distance, timing, different entries, feints, that kind of stuff. So yeah, and Greg Doyle, his father, who really was the founder of kind of the I guess you could say founder. Glenn codified it, but Glenn learned from his dad, kind of in the backyard kind of thing. You know what I mean? Right. He said, you want to learn how to spar? Put some boxing gloves on. Get in the ring. That's going to teach you your distance and your timing and your entries and that kind of stuff. That's not wrong. And I'm not picking on sparring. I get it. But if you're looking at strictly a combative art where I'm going to block once and then go in, I tell people I do some lengthy training combinations. But I've told everybody, if you can't finish this guy off in 3 or 4 moves, you're probably doing something wrong. The reason I give you this buffet of techniques is so you can see how it all fits together, and you can start pulling stuff out. When you go to a buffet, you don't eat every most people don't eat every food on the buffets, right? When I hit a buffet, I go to town, right? They don't make any money. But yeah, you don't eat every single thing, right? You pick and choose what works for you or what you want in that situation. And it's the same thing. There's a lot of techniques in Doyle. There really is. I'm documenting all of them, and I keep a little glossary, and every time I learn something new, I jot it down and kind of thing. There's a lot. They're all variations on the theme. You know what I mean? Some
Hmm.
people have said, "Oh, I
Hmm.
mean, this footwork that you're doing, oh, this is so much to remember." Yeah, but it's the same footwork when you do this and this and this and this and this. So don't think of it as a technique. Think of it as a concept. He's
Hmm.
stepping this way in 10 different techniques. So just kind
Hmm.
of when you start making those connection points, everything becomes so much easier. So much easier. There's not 1,000 techniques. There's a bunch of variations of one technique. You know what I mean? Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I think it helps people gel. So
Talking to Bernie, I thought it was so interesting that the Irish gentleman born in Ireland got Irish stick fighting in Canada. You know, like
yeah, yeah. It started out in Newfoundland, yeah, and then they moved to I
yeah,
think it was Ontario. I could be wrong there, but yeah, yeah, absolutely. And from what I understand, Greg was a tough nut. Glenn's father.
yeah,
We
yeah.
jokingly say, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, so I don't want anybody to get mad at me, but I usually say as a point, what are we working on today, Glenn? Bang. Okay, I guess we're working on blocks. That kind of thing. But just the Greg Doyle and Glenn Doyle, just as people, just remarkable people. Really, really, just amazing. I've never been fortunate enough to train with Glenn because he retired um, right before I got involved, and then turned it over to
Okay.
Bernie. I was training with Bernie. Trish and I were both training with Bernie um, when he inherited the system, and
Hmm.
he's the first person without the Doyle surname to head the system. This is a big deal, and
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
was our instructor. I'm like, wow, we got the number one guy. This is great. It was really good. It was really good. But yeah, the funny part, and Bernie may have mentioned this to you, people in Ireland have a hard time kind of they don't think it exists. A lot of them. I've gotten into arguments with Irish people. I had a guy. It wasn't an argument in this guy, but we had a little table set up at an Irish like a musical event because all the
Okay.
local bands really support us and why don't you come set up a table and they talk about us and stuff and it's great. We've made some serious inroads in Irish stick in the last 5 years. Um, and this little gentleman comes up and he's got a little cane, little shit. He kind of hobbles up. He's like 80 something years old. He walks up and he goes, and we have a video going and some pamphlets and some shillelaghs on the table. And he looks, he goes, Irish stick fighting. I was born and raised in County Cork. I'm 83 years old. Never heard of this. My response was, I'm not surprised. And that caught him off guard. I go, want to have a cup of coffee? And I sat down and explained to him why somebody who was born and raised in Ireland had never heard of this before. And
Yeah,
he walked
yeah.
away. He was like, I never thought about that. I never thought about that.
Hmm.
I saw somebody make a derogatory remark about Doyle. There's no evidence of Doyle until the 1990s. That's true because it was taught family, father to son, father to son, father to son for decades, for generations, right?
Hmm.
And it was never made public. So of course you're not going to hear about this. Well, show me
Right.
some documentation. Show me some documentation that they train with their dads and their grandfathers in their backyard. I mean, where are you
Right.
going? You can't prove it. You can't prove it's not. Kind of thing. But they just want to just get in there. You know what I mean? Yeah, Glenn didn't start teaching publicly until 1999. Greg was on his deathbed, passing away from cancer, and he said, "Dad, you got to let me teach this stuff because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, we're done. You don't have any other kids. No one's going to teach
Hmm.
it." And for years, from what I understand, Greg's like, "Nope, nope, nope," because when you start teaching the public, it's going to get, it's going to get jaded. It's going to get, it's going to dilute it. It's going to go off in directions you don't want to go. So finally, he went, "Okay, you can teach it." So that's when my understanding is Glenn started teaching it that way. So Glenn's a remarkable martial artist. I don't know if Bernie mentioned this. Glenn was, I think, a 4-time world wushu champion in Canada.
Whoa, no, we did not.
Oh, yeah. There's a video on him of doing a wushu form with a T-bench. Those little short
Yeah,
T-benches. And he's
yeah.
swinging at it. Remarkable martial artist. Really. Right. I've never been fortunate enough to train with him or even meet him. But yeah, I idolize him a bit. He's the real.
He's retired though, huh?
He's retired. Yep, he's retired. There were some frozen shoulder issues and stuff like that, and kind of
Hmm.
thing. So he decided, you know what, it's time to take a break, and he gave the system to Bernie. And my understanding, Bernie's goal is to spread this system far and wide, get it out there.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think Trish and I have been helping with that. We developed the websites. We put together a number of Facebook pages. My Facebook page is called The Irish Stick. And we've got 37,000 people on that page.
Hmm.
Now, it started out just for stick fighting primarily, and I let all stick fighters into it, right? And some
Hmm.
people question me on that. Well, this should be Doyle. No, it's all stick fighting styles because let people compare and contrast. If they go
Hmm.
to the 1, 2, 3 hour stick fighting page, they may never leave that page. If they come here,
Right.
we can talk to them, and we can all each system. Here's the
Hmm.
advantages. Here's the disadvantages. That kind of stuff, and it's elevated a lot. The flip side of that is also became a shillelagh makers page, right?
Hmm.
Because now probably 60% of the posts on there are people trying to sell their shillelagh sticks, right?
Right.
And we vet a lot. We there's a lot of scammers out there. We've got all kinds of filters in place, and we myself and Trish and TJ Medlin. I don't know if that you've heard that name before. He's a
Hmm.
training stick maker out of Ohio. Does
Hmm.
remarkable work. I make training sticks as well. TJ taught me basically between TJ Medlin and Brian Purdy. They taught me everything I know about making training sticks, and
Hmm.
and 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 he's one of the moderators on the group. And so between myself, Trish, and him, we peg out the scammers and stuff pretty well. But we got 37,000 people. Now people have said, well, why are you letting people sell their sticks on here? Well, because it's a symbiotic relationship, right?
Right.
Someone comes here to buy a stick. Oh, there's Irish stick fighting. Never heard of that before. Or someone comes because of the Irish stick fighting, maybe because of this video or our conversation, and they go, oh, I can buy sticks here too. You know what I
Right.
mean? And we just want to make sure they're good quality people and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's blown up. So we're probably the biggest Irish stick related resource on social media right now with almost 40,000 people. So
That's amazing. I just flat out asked Bernie, was like, yeah, all right, you're gonna train me. And before you train me, I need a stick. Where'd I get a stick?
yeah,
You know, like
yeah. Declan's a good. There are some very good stick makers out there. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
Declan is top notch. Yeah, I think
Well, I ultimately you had said that you only did the training stick. I ultimately wanted the shillelagh for
sure,
the full
sure.
experience. And, you know, I am only 42 years old, but I am looking forward to being a curmudgeon old man that walks with a stick.
Carrying a stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, look.
I
Let me
mean,
let's back up for 1 second. You can carry a stick almost anywhere, right?
yeah, 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 100%.
Into a courthouse, into a school, into an airport, all the places where
Hmm.
these bad things are happening on a national or
Yes.
international level, right? Now with
Hmm.
thorns on it, thorns you're probably going to need taken away because that's a weapon,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
if you have nubs on it, they shave down the thorns. That's a very effective self-defense tool, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So that's one of the advantages. That's like people that do cane, like cane
Hmm.
masters. That kind of stuff. They can carry that anywhere. They can't even legally ask you why you carry it. You know what I mean? So, but honestly, you started to say
Well,
something about
very
shillelaghs.
briefly, I will tell you a story that you just reminded me of. It was September 16th of 2001. Very important year. And in that specific day, me and a group of martial artists that I was overseeing, we were teaching at the school. Then we left at noon and we had to go in gi to the airport to fly to Florida
Yeah.
out of Kentucky because in Florida, we were getting off an airplane and going to teach at a seminar.
Okay.
Okay. So five of us go on September 16th of 2001 in gi through the airport, an experience of itself. And what we were teaching here on Kentucky side was some judo. And I don't know how familiar you are with the judo, but if you get high enough up in ranks in judo, you get a neck lanyard uh, plastic knife.
Okay. Didn't know that.
Okay. Well, so we get through security, everything's fine, everybody's passive. We get seated in the plane, and then I'm there and I'm like, okay, we're good. Turn around and I'm looking at my other people to make sure everybody else is good, and one of the guys is white as a sheet. And I'm like, are you okay? What's wrong? And he just goes and he grabs his lanyard and he just pulls it up. So he had on September 16th made it through with a knife.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't do anything. Put it back. We'll deal with it when we get off the plane.
Yeah,
So
things were on high alert back then. But
yeah, things were high alert. I always made the argument is like back in 2001, why are you letting me have a CD if you're worried about something, because I could take a CD and snap it in half and now I have two knives.
yeah, I used to laugh and say,
So
dude, you have no idea. I could do more with one of those plastic sporks than most people can with a machete. You know what I
absolutely, absolutely. One of my big martial arts philosophies is if you define something, you lose sight of it entirely.
Good
And I
point.
tell that to all self-defense classes. I tell that to all martial arts classes because this is a phone. But if I sheath it, it's a really good weapon,
Exactly.
you
Now,
know?
I
So
think you're going to ask a question about the durability of a blackthorn or something along the lines, because you said I make trainers, but
uh,
you're going to right. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we had a conversation offline. You make trainers. I wanted a shillelagh, and I recognize while I am not new to martial arts, I am new to Doyle stick fighting.
yep,
And I guess my question was advantages, disadvantages. Should I also get a trainer and only use the trainer when I'm not, when I'm training? Should I use a trainer, or
yeah,
is the shillelagh good for? So,
sure.
you got the gist of the question.
A couple of things.
Mhm.
First of all, the way I explain it to people is you want to treat this stick as a whip, not a club, right? Because these are very snappy motions with and that kind of stuff, right? It's not a matter of going
Mhm.
throwing the caveman mentality at it, right? It's a
Okay.
fast move. It's fast. So you don't want to get anything that's too heavy, right? Some people
Mhm.
say, "Well, I've got the cold steel, polymer." I'm like, I will not train you if you use that because it's
Okay.
potential injuries, right? Well, I like training with heavier, so I'm stronger. All that stuff aside, yeah, no. So I don't like anything too heavy myself, and that's what I usually preach to other people, right? So when you get a shillelagh, you want to make sure it's not, a pound and a half or a pound and three quarters. Usually the sticks I use are a poundish kind of thing, maybe a pound a little bit
Okay.
less. So just keep that in mind as you go too. Most stick fighters, training stick fighters, um, use training sticks, right?
Mhm.
So training sticks, like something like this is one I have sitting here. This is an oak stick. Has a little knob on the top kind of thing. It's a 1x1. It moves quick and it hits hard, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
most of them use that. Now I think the logic behind that is one, there's a couple things happening. These are not necessarily inexpensive, right?
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
break it, breaking it's going to be very hard to do. Let's be clear. This is one of the most durable sticks or most durable woods I've ever dealt with. This is a blackthorn. Another popular
Mhm.
one for a genuine stick is hazel,
Mhm.
right? This hazel a little bit lighter, a little bit faster, very durable, right?
Mhm.
Stick's pretty durable, not so much the bark, right? So
Okay,
eventually,
okay.
you find a really nice stick and you bang it, you're probably going to see a little wear and tear. But for some
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
that's a badge of honor, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people that go with the shillelaghs either use a trainer because one, they can be expensive for a really nice shillelagh, right? But there's plenty of
Mhm.
people that make, these banging shillelaghs out there. Or two, if it's an heirloom, right, or something that you got,
Uh,
there's a lot of historic value or family value to that. So people, I got this
mhm.
from my grandfather. You sure you want to bang that around? Think about that for a
Mhm.
second, kind of thing.
Mhm.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with training with good shillelagh. I got a new one from Declan actually, just not too far back. If I can find it real quick. Not that one. Not that one. Here it is. I got this from Declan a few weeks back, right? As a fighting
Very
stick.
cool.
As a fighting stick.
Very
It's a
cool.
beautiful.
I like the head of that.
Yeah. It's funny because when he put it out on the group, he goes, a beautiful stick. This is a great stick for, did he say a lady, a woman, something like that, right? Yeah. And I reached out, I go, why is that a great stick for a woman? He goes, well, it's light. It's got a smaller knob. It's only about an inch in circumference. I go, I'll take it. He goes, is that for Trish? I go, no, it's for me. Because I like, it's hard. I can swing it fast, right? I don't have to worry about excess weight. I love
Right.
the size of the head because I don't want it to roll. I mean, it's a beautiful stick. It's a great stick. But yeah, so most people at least that I've trained with, do use training sticks. And the shillelagh would be for solo training, maybe when we do the form, the rinka, that kind of stuff. But that's not saying people aren't there swinging sticks. I know Bernie uses a shillelagh, right? Absolutely
Okay.
uses it. I have sold off most of my what I would consider ones that would be willing to beat up, and the ones I
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
for a reason, because they're beautiful sticks, or I wanted to keep it, or this whole row here is from a retired stick maker named Joe Taylor. He doesn't make sticks anymore. He's a legend in the stick making business. So guess what? I'm keeping all those. You know what I mean, kind of
Oh,
thing.
no,
So,
absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, and the primary stick makers, training stick makers right now are myself, of course, TJ Medlin, who does some beautiful, beautiful work, and Brian Purdy. Brian Purdy's kind of on sabbatical right now, but the three of us were probably the biggest, training stick makers out there, to use. And yeah, no, it doesn't hurt to have one. It doesn't hurt to have one. I will tell you, blackthorn is tough. Not as much the bark. I've seen bark flake off once in a while, but I got a stick from a guy named Ian, and he's in a place called the Old Shillelagh Shop in actually the town of Shillelagh in Ireland, right? And when it came from about here down, it was broken and snapped, right? And
Oh,
it
wow.
was up at about a 45-degree angle. Not this stick, but as an example,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I reached out to him. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He has insurance on the shipping and stuff. So he said, send it back to me and I'll send you a new one, which he did. And it's beautiful. But I go, well, you know what? Before I put it back in the box, I'm going to try to straighten this out. Right now, it was cracked at 45 degrees. I could see the bark splitting off of this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything I had, I'm trying to straighten it out. I could not straighten this out. A broken stick. That to me, that showed me exactly how durable and how tough blackthorn is.
Whoa.
So I have no problem. I don't think I'm ever going to break a blackthorn stick. My thing is, to me, they're works of art. They're wall hangers. Even this is designed to fight with. Oh man, I don't want to chip this bark off, kind of thing. But no, you can absolutely use a real shillelagh. There's no question. Blackthorn is a big thing for shillelagh. Hazel is a big thing for shillelagh. Sometimes people are making pear and all kinds of stuff. Hazel and blackthorn, from my understanding, are the big ones. Blackthorn's become the kind of the tourist trap. Oh, it has to be a blackthorn. Shillelaghs are only this big and not this big, kind of thing. And I'm like, you just get wrapped up. But no, you can use either or. Absolutely, no question.
Well, I'm not. I was definitely wanting somebody that got one for my size. Because I don't need a 3 foot.
Yeah. Now you need like a 41, 42 incher. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I guess that question comes from Shaolin Kempo. I was learning several bow staff forms at one point in time. That was my mastery weapon, so that was what I picked when I started out. And we did conceptually like a Japanese style holds it in the middle, Chinese style holding it at the end, similar to a fisherman, and I would do some of these wushu slams where I would take the staff over my shoulder and slam it down on the ground. I could take a brand new bow staff that somebody opens up, takes the plastic off, and throws it at me and do a wushu slam and break it, snap it in half. Part of that's because I'm 6'5".
Yeah.
At the time I was like 20 to 30 pounds heavier in muscle. Your late teens, early 20s. Ramped with testosterone, working out for 8-10 hours a day. Like the snap was very, very easy, right? So I had to outsource 2 bow staffs, custom made for me out of coca which is the most dense wood
Yep.
and I love those. They haven't broke on me. That's what I still use to this day. So I appreciate that hardwood. I'm going to have to play around with my shillelagh and see where it gets me.
Again, the caution I want, just if you get a trainer and certain hardwoods, it's going to be very heavy. So just be careful.
Yeah.
You don't want to be.
Well, I don't want heavy unless heavy is required or requested.
Let me tell you, we don't do heavy. We do these punches, right, where we come out and we're doing like a boxer, right? You use the one of those steel or heavy one. You do risk some injury to your wrist, maybe your forearm, your elbow, because you're doing this motion. It's not
Yes.
this motion, right? It's snap. So you're snapping it out like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
block. So if it's too heavy, you could conceivably hurt yourself. Not everyone. Some people are great. They got big, thick wrists and they can do that.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Again, you want this stick to be fast.
Right. Right. Right.
Think of it as a
Okay.
whip and not a club. So
I love that analogy. Like a whip, not a club. Where can the people that are watching this find you that don't already know
okay,
you?
right. Well, yeah. Hello, everyone. You all know where to find me. They can always reach out to me on the group, theirishstick.com. Right.
Mhm.
Well, I would say I take that back. That's the website, theirishstick.com. Right.
Mhm.
Um, and everything that's on there is also on the Doyle site if you go there. So there's a list of instructors if you're looking for someone to learn from. Right. There's a
Mhm.
list of coaches and instructors under the Find an Instructor page. Right. So feel free if you live in somewhere in the Midwest, there might be somebody in your area that's close to train with. Like TJ lives in Ohio. Um, there's another great instructor, Tom Moore. Tom Moore is up here in New York State half the year, up in Rochester,
Mhm.
and then the other half here is down in I think it's Milton, Florida. Right. So all everyone that has a title of instructor, because there's different levels. And once you become a full instructor under Bernie, you're allowed to teach on Zoom. Right. I teach 50 people a week on Zoom. TJ is going to be doing Zoom sessions, is my understanding. Tom teaches on Zoom. So sometimes you don't find an instructor in your area. Zoom is a
Mhm.
great. You can really learn the foundations, and then when you go to a live seminar, you can tweak and learn some different applications and that kind of stuff. A lot of my students are Zoom based to learn the kind of
Mhm.
fundamentals, right? So I'm on Facebook, my personal page, or you can go to theirishstick.com. I'm saying it again, The Irish Stick Group, and the website is theirishstick.com. All my contact information is out there. I'm based in upstate New York, just south of Albany. A lot of people say
Okay.
New York, they think it's the city, right? How's things
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're upstate, up towards the capital, and but I have students all over the world, because of Zoom. Zoom changed the training environment. When I was a
Yeah.
corporate
Yeah.
trainer, everything had to change when COVID hit and we had to use Zoom. But also opened up a lot of opportunity, a lot of
Mhm.
opportunity.
Mhm.
You will not find video training like like a subscription program for Doyle. Right up
Yeah.
front,
Yeah.
I'll get into that because that's the way I look at it. It's meant to protect the integrity of the system,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
and the instruction.
Yeah.
Not saying that other Zoom sessions are not bad, but again, I said in the beginning, we're trying to preserve the legacy of the Doyles, not just
Mhm.
teach
Mhm.
Irish state fighting, right? So you don't typically.
Absolutely.
Bernie does, we all do Zoom sessions. We do Instagram, a little bit here and
Mhm.
there. So there are video aspects of it, but you won't find a full-fledged,
Mhm.
codified program on video. So, but yeah, you can
I
reach
saw
me.
you. I saw your video from like a month or maybe two ago, where you were talking about close quarters in an elevator, and I believe you had.
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. There was we were at an Irish event, we do a lot of those. And I always said when you do a thrash, which thrash is a big sweeping move with the stick, right?
Hmm.
You should be able to do that in an elevator. Because one of the things we do is we keep it basically centered. We come here, bring it around, and hit past the guy and come here. We don't bring it way out here because if I
Hmm.
miss it, I'm in big trouble. Right? And I've always said, I always say to people, you should be able to do that in an elevator. I'm like, I
Hmm.
never really tried it. So we're at this event and there's an elevator there, right next to our table. We were in a pub actually, the pub area, right? And I go, hey, look, Trish, there's an elevator. Let's give this a shot, right? And damn, it worked. It worked. So because the way you do the technique and the way I teach it is it stays within the shoulder lines, right? Bam! You don't want to bring it way out here. And I'm in this elevator and it worked beautifully. It absolutely worked beautifully. So you'll see a lot of us putting those little jibs and drabs out there, just to gain some interest. But yeah, no, it's a blast. It's a blast. So
It's great when the concept starts here and then actually does work in the real
yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah. So we've got I think Marty Sack, I think, is in North Carolina. He's an instructor. Uh, Koo McCann is in Baltimore, Maryland. TJ's in Ohio. I'm up here in upstate New York. Tom Moore is Rochester / Milton, Florida. Brian Purdy is in I think Plantation, Florida. And if I'm forgetting any other instructors, we have some coaches. You have Mike Rikeke that teaches out of New York City, right? I'm down there, as well as Matt Flaherty, who's an instructor that works with Mike down there. So we're starting to really, really grow, really gravitate, really, really grow, which is really what we're here to do, right? I've got a couple coaches on the hook now. I got a couple guys in California that are going to be teaching out there. I have one coach who is actually based in Oregon, who teaches a group there, and also has an offshoot group in Seattle, Washington. So it's really growing. It's really growing, and we love that. And if this could be all over the world, Bernie's in Ireland. There's a great group of Irish stick fighters in the UK, kind of thing. And this is exactly what we wanted to do. Let it grow. What are you laughing at?
How ironic that there's a great group of Irish stick fighters in the UK right now.
Yeah, and it's led by a couple of people. There's one group that's led by one of Bernie's students, Dave McGoldrick, and there's another group that's led by Bernie's brother, Danny. Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
He's in the UK, so.
Okay. Well, it's great that it exists. It's just wild to me because of the history. The same people that squashed it, they're now thriving on it. Good.
But when you train, you're going to see it's very different than bow training, go training, eskrima stick training. Plus, there's a lot of cultural, effects because of this. We do this because back in the day, this is why they had to do it this way, kind of thing. But that translates very smoothly over to modern day application. It really does. It really does. So when they say, there's so many ways to move a stick, yeah, that's a true statement, right? I don't agree with it, but that's a true statement, because your 50 ways to move your bow may be different than my 50 ways to move an Irish stick. Right. There's a finite ways to move the human body, but each art may only take a portion of that.
Right.
And so that global statement always kind of sits wrong with me sometimes, so.
Well, you just kind of unlock something for me, is that it's important to tell students, whether they're first-time students or they're students that have been studying for 10 years and they're looking to change styles, is to not have any anticipation or expectation.
Yeah.
Because, I've been doing martial arts for 32 years. And when my shillelagh gets here in the mail and I start with Bernie, I don't have any expectation of what I'm going to get out of that. And that's very, very important, because that's me approaching something open-minded, open-hearted, and with new eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the key for any student that's listening to that. That's the key for success. Because if you don't do that, and I go into it and I'm like, well, that's not how eskrima does it. That's not how I move my bow. Then I'm missing out on all of the new that I could be getting.
Right.
But then I'm also doing a disservice to what I've already had, because one, Doyle may teach me a more efficient way of moving my bow staff.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? Doyle may teach me a more efficient way of a wrist lock that I have, but I won't know that if I don't stay open-minded to it. Yeah. So
I had a gentleman come to, I was doing a tomahawk seminar, right? And he's like, it's the same thing as doing a collie stick. It's the same thing. I go, really, it's not, So when he did his stick, and there's nothing wrong with this in context, this would be their set position here against the back.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing as a tomahawk. So I go, no, it's not. So he takes the training tomahawk and he goes, boom. I go, great. You just found the world's most expensive back scratcher right there. So this is why it's not the same, because you can't do that with a tomahawk and it has a hook on the back. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is the whole thing. Oh, we do that footwork. We do that footwork. We do this. We do that. I'm like, man, dude, you got to open up your brain a little bit more. Open up your mind. So to find references between the two, absolutely. But
yes,
there's no one-to-one comparison in almost any martial art, even Kempo.
Absolutely.
Different techniques, different body postures. So yeah, but no, that's cool. But
right, John, I want to thank you for this interview, and also because you have done this interview with me, you're now part of my martial arts journey, whether you like it or not. And I thank you for
Excited.
that as well.
Excited. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Same here. So
and I want to thank everybody that took the time to listen to this. And like always, keep kicking.
thanks, everyone.
That was a great one. I cannot wait to get my shillelagh, start swinging it about. I cannot wait to be whatever I consider to be old man enough to carry a cane. Um, my story is a darker one than most of the people that I talk to, and that's perfectly okay. But when I say I look forward to being old enough to carry a cane, that is something that I have not always been able to say. And it is a blessing for me that I am in a point in my life where I am looking forward to growing old. And I have martial arts to thank for that, to some degree, at least. I have you all to thank for that, and I have this podcast outlet to thank for that. I am looking forward to continuing. I'm looking forward to studying Irish stick fighting, and I am continuing to keep kicking.